Okay, welcome to Mr. Burley Teaches, a series of lectures for the AP Environmental Science classroom. Today's discussion is biodiversity, and welcome to one of the more in-depth, exciting units. We get to go outside and look at biodiversity in person, but first we need to learn a little bit about the concepts that we're going to go and explore and observe out into nature. So sit back, relax, and enjoy talking and learning about the plants and animals on Earth and the ecosystems and habitats that they call home. Okay, Earth is a very diverse place. Many plants and animals that all have what we call ecological services. They provide services to the environment and humans and each other. Earth being a very diverse place, all right, there's a lot of interesting creatures. All right, here you see the red-lipped batfish. Even though he looks upset, he is not. He's very happy and content in his environment. Unlike the goblin shark, who's been taken away from his environment, and as he looks, is unhappy about it. The little bug on the left-hand side, you can see that horned beetle there. You can imagine him blending into his environment, using his camouflage to survive. And the little guy on the right-hand side there, using his adaptations to escape predators. There you got the hummingbird hawk moth. You might see those in your yard. I have a couple of those that visit my butterfly bushes. And there you go, the Venezuelan poodle moth. Don't you just want to scratch him behind the ear? Cute little guy. Alright, can't say the same about the pacu fish. Alright, or the giant isopod. I wouldn't want to wake up next to them. Earth being a very diverse place full of so many plants and animals. We're going to talk a lot about all these species and how many of them there are and what they mean to us. Okay, so what is biodiversity? We're talking about the degree of variation of life on Earth. Okay, and I have a picture here of a coral reef and a tropical rainforest, the two most diverse places on Earth. Coral reef has more living species working together in it. The rainforest has more living species than any other ecosystem on the planet. These two ecosystems are the most biodiverse places on planet Earth. Reason enough to want to protect them, to make sure that their habitats are protected so that we can better learn about the species of plants and animals within them and maybe use them for our benefits. These two also happen to be the most threatened places on Earth. Okay, so we have to be real careful about our human actions because these places won't be around forever, all right, if we continue on the same path. We can understand biodiversity best by going to these types of places and learning what's there. Okay, so why is biodiversity important? Why should we care? Main word here is stability. Biodiversity creates stability within an ecosystem and the environment. All right, and that goes a long way. And I'll use a couple examples here. We'll start off with the bat. In North America here, we're seeing the bat population decrease, all right, mainly because of a disease called white nose syndrome. The bat population is decreasing. All right, how is that going to create instability? Well, if you think about what bats eat, they eat insects. All right, insects like mosquitoes. All right, not many people care about the bats. We shouldn't worry about them. You don't want them in your house. And oh my gosh, I hope one doesn't land on me. And they're swooping. But you know what? The bats are so important because they keep the mosquito population down. So if the bats go away, all right, that's going to create instability within an ecosystem. We would see the mosquito population increase, and along with it, things like West Nile virus, things that could find their way into the human population. Those types of diseases would increase, which would lead to an instability. All right, so that's one example of how bats keep the mosquito population down, keep stability within an ecosystem. Without the bats, we would have more virus and more transmittable diseases from a larger mosquito population. That's one example. Okay, we're going to go through many. So biodiversity creates a stability, and we just have to figure out what that means for us. All right, so let's take a look at another example. You come to school at Souderton High School, a big, beautiful building. So let's think about the amount of biodiversity before our school. Our school was put on the highest point, one of the highest points in our district, all right, which was once a forest, and that forest had trees, and under the trees were shrubs and saplings and mosses and rocks, and animals and plants and insects and worms and bugs and birds and critters. Okay, tremendous amounts of biodiversity in our forests, in the North American forests. when this building was planned, they had to take the forest away. So they removed all the trees. And in fact, they removed the top layer of soil as well, and all the organisms and bacteria and worms and mites and spiders with it. Okay, and what they did was they plopped our big beautiful building on the subsoil, and they planted the grass and put in a few trees. But what they did was they removed a self-sustaining rich forest ecosystem and replaced it with a man-made ecosystem, our school and what we see today. So think about all the plants and animals that were here in the forest before, and they are all now gone. So what does our new ecosystem consist of? A few shrubs and a few trees. There may or may not be some ants, but what's gone are the butterflies, the bees, the native plants, the native flowers, the native trees, right? The native birds. Not too much biodiversity left where our school stands today. All right, and that's what we do as humans. We replace very rich ecosystems with developed land and parking lots. All right, we remove the biodiversity. To make up for that, we build man-made ecosystems. We put in retention ponds like Lake Verano, and we leave little patches of woods here and there and try and maintain as much biodiversity as we can, but it isn't enough. And we need to continue to preserve valuable ecosystems even in and around our own communities. Okay, which brings me to the Save House. When you visit Save, you can come down our trails and walk down through our ponds, and you'll see the birds, the bees, the moths, the butterflies. The frogs will jump into the pond, will join the turtles and the algae and the bacteria and the funguses and the mushrooms and the trees, all at the Save campus. So as a Save member, you are part of preserving the biodiversity of a small little patch of woods next to the West Broad Elementary School in Souderton, Pennsylvania, USA. All right, that should be our job, is to preserve the biodiversity because of what it can do for us and our community. All right, so that brings us to another example. Let's take a look at the honeybee. Okay, why is biodiversity important? The variety of life. The bee gives us an excellent opportunity to see the value, the ecological services that one species provides, and what would happen if that species declined or disappeared. All right, so let's take a look at the honeybee. I gave you a reading. Okay, bees crucial to many crops still dying at a worrisome rate. I want you to read with a purpose. Think about biodiversity and how it's important. What ecological services do the honeybee provide? All right, so as you read, I want you to think about, how are honeybees important? What do? How do they create stability? And what would be the result if they were gone? All right, so I want you to read with a purpose and think about that while you read. Okay, thanks. I hope you enjoyed that article. Okay, there's a lot of rich information in this article. And if you thought about how honeybees are important to an ecosystem, it says it right there in the first sentence. They're crucial in pollination. Now, you probably knew that, but maybe you didn't realize how crucial they are in the pollination of our crops. 1/4 of our crops are pollinated by bees. All right, crops like almonds, apples, and here's the big one, asterisk, oh my gosh, beans. All right, we don't realize how important beans are today. So over the past few years, bee populations have been dying at a rate that is economically unstable. How do bees create stability within an ecosystem? They pollinate 1/4 of our crops. And their decline is leading to an economically unsustainable lifestyle. All right, so if you think about it, if they're pollinating 1/4 of our crops, like beans, and they're gone, there'll be less beans. Okay, if there's less beans, there's a food shortage. If there's a food shortage, the price of food will go up. All right, so that's what they're talking about when they say that the rate at which bees are dying may become economically unstable. It might affect our economics. Okay, so you can see, hopefully, how important this one example, this one species is, not only in an ecosystem and environment, but here to our economics. Okay, keeping on the bee topic, here's a little table for you just to kind of give you a sense. Look how much of a business beans is. We're talking about agribusiness. And they'll call this is the agri-chemical companies. All right, agricultural chemical companies, agribusiness. All right, look at how much of a business soybeans are. All right, and if you took bees away, 5% of that business would be gone, which would increase the price, which would increase most of our foods. Take a look at something, go into your cabinet, pause the video, go to your cabinet and get out some type of processed food. And if you see hydrogenated soybean oil on the back of it, it's a soy product, any soy product. All right, if you look here, cotton, all right, 16% of cotton relies on beans, all right, or clothing. All right, then you got grapes, almonds. Look at almonds, wholeheartedly relying on beans. Apples, peaches, blueberries. Life would be different without bees. Other methods of pollination like birds, winds, and radar could not make up the void left behind by no bees. Okay, just giving you a sense of how important this is. The bee collapse is due to what's called colony collapse disorder. Okay, and you can see a map here of where they're reporting colony collapse disorder. You can throw New Jersey, Maryland, and Delaware in there since 2007. Okay, colony collapse disorder is, in your article, it talked about one of the culprits being neonicotinoid. All right, and if you look in there, you see the word nicotine. As used as an insecticide, nicotine is a poison. And that article is good for a whole bunch of reasons, and they talked about one company, Monsanto. All right, we'll talk a lot about Monsanto. They have a market on the soybean and other seeds. Okay, and what they do is they'll put that chemical in the seeds. They'll genetically modify that seed to have that insecticide. So as the plant grows, in the leaves themselves, you can find the insecticide. So as the insect that you want to prevent comes and lands on the flower or the leaf, eats the leaf, the insect will die. And that's one of the culprits for the decline of the bee population. A bee will leave the colony, go and land on the flower, and be exposed to the insecticide, and the bee will never come home to the colony, and therefore you will have colony collapse disorder. This insecticide is being widely used today. All right, let's take a look at the map. From 1994 to 2009, what we see is not only an increased use, but look where it is. In America's heartland, where we're growing corn and soy. All right, oranges, California and Florida. Blueberries and cranberries. All right, the peaches. Okay, we're seeing colony collapse disorder in these crucial areas where we're growing our food. There are some other theories of colony collapse disorder. We use pesticides when we spray for pests on crops, all right, on apple trees. They talk about stress, strain from being moved by beekeepers. There's a parasite called the varroa mite that they've discovered in some colonies that have led to the decline of some colonies, some bee populations, and then nutrition is on there. But hopefully you can see with the use of this one insecticide, the neonicotinoid, that there's not only a combination of things, but it seems like there's a smoking gun. Okay, so hopefully you get to see how the bee in this particular case and biodiversity and how it's important and how it affects humans. Without the bee, it would affect not only the pollination of those plants and those crops, but also human health and the economy. It's important to realize that biodiversity stabilizes an ecosystem. Ecosystems are very balanced, and if you take one component out or you alter that ecosystem a little bit, there could be a whole chain of events. All right. So don't walk away yet. Hopefully you're ready to learn a little bit more about ecosystems, and you've been primed now with our example about bees. So strap yourself in, and here we go.